973-7425. I don't have to check the radar. I can look out the windows of this here studio and I see blue sky in Macon. I assume the rest of you weathered the flooding and storms okay. My goodness, South Georgia overnight had some pretty bad storms roll through late yesterday. You know, my kids went to school yesterday morning and were upset. My daughter texted me saying all the schools are closed and yet we're here. Can I come home? And I texted her, no. She said, must not love her. I said, well, it's not that. It's that I got great life insurance on you. She didn't like that. But then they wound up closing school early. Around 1 o'clock, I went to the gym right after the show, had some lunch, went to the gym, got to the gym, and the guy I work out with, he's like, the people just left here because they're closing one of the public schools. Right up the street, Ace, near where I live in Middle Georgia. And about 5 minutes later, I got a text on my phone from my kids' school saying they're closing. Come get them. And man, right as my wife went to get the kids, right as my wife went, the worst of the storm came rolling through. Naturally, everybody got soaked, but it was a messy, messy night. And did I roll down the trash? Yes, I rolled down my trash can. Sorry, it was pouring down rain last night. I wasn't going to take the trash out. I can't remember when I did it. In any event, I hope you weathered the storm. Now, we've got news, and there was stuff I wanted to talk about, but suddenly there's breaking news, and I need to get to the breaking news before I can get to the news that I want to talk about, and it's actually good breaking news. The economy, turns out there is more runway for our good economy right now. The national economists are saying that there was job growth. The U.S. added 225,000 jobs in January. Now, here's one of the little caveats. The unemployment rate rose 0.1 of a point from 3.5% to 3.6%. But the U.S. economy added 220,000 jobs in January, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Notable job gains from January occurred in construction, healthcare, transportation, and warehousing. By the way, transportation and warehousing benefits Georgia. Have you driven on 75? Up and down, or 16, all the warehouses and whatnot that we've got in Georgia now benefits Georgia. Manufacturing lost 12,000 jobs in January. Motor vehicles and parts lost 11,000, but average hourly earnings rose by 7 cents to $28.44 an hour last month. That's actually, this is all very good news. In fact, what the Bureau of Labor Statistics is saying is that it looks like the economy, even at the end of the year, was better than what people thought it was. I'm trying to find Seth Kukis. Where? Oh, come on. Where is he? In any event, there's an economist I like to follow, and so I want to track him down. But in any event, what the economy seems to be showing is that the jobs market is on fire still. It is very, very, very good. And the economy keeps churning things. It keeps churning out jobs when people expect an economic slowdown. In fact, this just happened in the last couple of minutes on CNN. Listen to this.
And this job machine just keeps churning, you guys. It's so fascinating. 225,000 net new jobs created in the month. 225,000. It's so big that it broke my machine. And this job.
Now, what happened? Her machine went out. Her monitor that she uses broke just as she was coming on with this. And I mean, y'all, this is actually a really good thing for the economy. Let me read you this from the Capital Economics Group, which is a research analyst firm. The rebound in employment growth in the tail end of last year looks stronger now, suggesting the economy had more momentum than we believe. Now, what is this about? If you will recall, at the end of last year, there was an unexpected surge in job creation. And a lot of people were thinking, is this an anomaly? Was it an unexpected bounce? Well, in January, yes, unemployment ticked up very slightly, 0.1 of a point. But let me read you the numbers. 12,000 jobs lost in manufacturing and 11,000 jobs lost in motor vehicle and parts. Now, interestingly enough, the USMCA, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, will solve some of that because, remember, it will mobilize more manufacturing in this country for motor vehicles and parts. But look at the numbers here. Healthcare, 36,000 job increase. Construction, 44,000 job increase. Transportation, warehousing, 106,000 job increase. So there was a tenth of a point wobble in the unemployment rate. It's still remarkably low. It is below 4%, which is incredible. 4% is fantastic in and of itself. It had been at 3.5%, which most economists would say is full employment. It is now at 3.6%. Some of that as well, looking at the underlying data here, if I'm hemming and hawing a little bit, it's because I'm talking to you while I'm also reading at the same time. I can multitask, not well, but I can do it. And part of this number is the U6 or whatever number, more people going back into the workforce still. And remember, when people sit out of the workforce, they are not listed as employed or unemployed. They're just not in the workforce. When people come into the workforce, they're unemployed until they actually get a job. Well, people are still coming back into the workforce, and so they're considered unemployed, which has some level there. Manufacturing remains one of the tough spots in the economy. 12,000 jobs lost. But part of that is Boeing shut down over the 737 MAX, and part of it is the trade war. Now, I gotta say something, and I agree with Jim Methakukis, who is a policy analyst with the American Enterprise Institute. He also won Jeopardy. Can you imagine all the people? Can you imagine Donald Trump for the next 9 months does nothing but tweet out economic data? He doesn't attack Nancy Pelosi. He doesn't attack the left. He just tweets out good economic numbers. Okay, maybe if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, that he goes after Bernie Sanders, and it looks like Bernie Sanders may very well be the nominee. But you know, you gotta. These are impressive job numbers. And I didn't intend to start here this morning. The news just came out. But what exactly what are people in the left going to say? The best they can do is that the president inherited a healthy economy. Here's the problem with that, though. All of the polling out there shows most Americans don't actually believe that. Most Americans, the Democrats have this belief, it is a philosophical belief on their part because they can't give Donald Trump credit for anything, that the economy was all hunky-dory with Barack Obama. You know, in politics, perception's reality. If people are convinced that things are going well, then things are going well, whether they are or they're not. If people think that things are going badly, well, guess what? People think things are going badly, even if they're not. And it is objectively true that the economy did turn around when Barack Obama was president. It is objectively true that the turnaround began with Barack Obama. But it is also objectively true that a lot of people did not feel like there was an economic turnaround with Barack Obama. It is objectively true that polling, Gallup has the historic data points here. It is objectively true that most people did not feel the economic benefit. A lot of rich people felt the economic benefit, and a lot of people did go back to work. But a lot of people were having to work two jobs instead of one. And in fact, right now, today in this country, there are still a lot of people working two part-time jobs to make a full-time living. But there are fewer people today doing that than there were during Obama's administration. And those sorts of things do matter. The economy matters. The economy matters more than anything else. I mean, think about all the stuff Democrats can care about. You know, there was an op-ed the other day. I forget in which publication. Maybe I still have it. I think I deleted it. I was going to talk about it, and then I decided I wasn't going to talk about it because it would just take me down all sorts of rabbit holes we probably didn't need to go down. But by God, let me just mention it. I think it was in Illinois. In Illinois, doctors somewhere at some think tank institute have decided that the government should help prepubescent teens suffering gender dysphoria go through surgery to conform to the gender they believe they actually are. So if you're a boy and you think you're a girl and you're not yet 12, 13, or 14 years old, your hormones haven't kicked in yet, then doctors should go on and alleviate your suffering by giving you testosterone suppressing drugs, estrogen boosting drugs, and reshape your body through surgical procedures, and that any parent who denies this is abusive. This is actually from a think tank, a left-wing think tank, that parents opposing children going through transitioning is abusive, even if the kid hasn't reached puberty yet. Now, you and I know, because every single person on planet Earth has gone through this, that you hit puberty and your hormones are all rage. My Lord. Have you guys seen the movie In and Out? I am living that right now with a teenager. I love both of my kids, but wow, you hit the teenage years, and we are just hitting the teenage years in the Erickson household. And we got good days and we got bad days, and we got really bad days and we have pretty good days. Mostly, my kids are fairly even keeled and level headed. They are wonderful human beings. I love my children, and man, I take my kids out, take me, take my sisters, take y'all. I mean, you people know what I'm talking about. I love my kids. They're starting to run circles around me, though. My kids can outthink me, and that becomes a problem when we're in arguments about things. Only for so much longer can I say because I said so as the reason to justify something. They're beginning to question me. And, my kids go to the school, and I'm thinking I may have to like homeschool them or something, because my kids are going to a school and they're learning logic and fallacies and things like that, and I'll tell them something and they'll start to tell me that it's a fallacy, and all I want to do is call DFACS to come save them from the wrath that I'm about to rain down on them. And nonetheless, you get my point. Hormones, and so you've now got doctors out there saying that we gotta have the state help people, help kids go through gender reassignment, sex change surgery, where they carve out things and chop things off and rearrange. This is absurd. So you should think it's absurd. There's the mental health issue, the people who don't think this is absurd. Now, what is this? What the heck? You're saying, Erickson, come on here. Focus. I am focused. This is the point. We can worry about garbage like this because the economy is doing so well. The left can get worked up over whether you have a constitutional right to chop parts of your body off as a 9-year-old because the economy is doing so well. And I got to tell you that I firmly believe when you look at the cultural data points in this country, we are more liberal in this country than I am, more than I wish we were. But when you actually look at the underlying cultural, philosophical opinions of the American public, they're actually more conservative than the left thinks they are. So if the economy is doing really well and Bernie Sanders is going out saying, okay, we now have too many choices in deodorant, we need to shut some of them down. And you've got Elizabeth Warren out there saying we need to allow transgender children to pick the Secretary of Education. And in middle America's like, what the heck? Transgender kid, what? Huh? That only helps President Trump. It only helps President Trump. The economy is doing so well, it has allowed much of American society to worry about trivial things because they got food in their belly, food on the table, and they got a roof over their head. We are in a society right now that whips itself into a frenzy over inconsequential things because so many of the consequential things are going so well for us right now. The moment that changes, we'll go back to focusing on the big stuff. But there's no major war. There's no mass economic catastrophe. The coronavirus is largely contained overseas. So we're allowed to focus. Well, the left is allowed to focus on crazy things. And that all works to the president's benefit. If Bernie Sanders is going out there telling people we need to upend the American economy that is serving the public so well, how does that really help Bernie Sanders? That helps Donald Trump. The economy is his single biggest selling point right now. And if he would keep himself out of the headlines and let people focus on just how good things are right now and how nuts the left is, the president would win in a landslide in November.
Want to be on the show? Call Eric now at 877.
The phone number here at the program, if you'd like to call in, if you want to be a part of this here program, it is 877-97-ERICK, E-R-I-C-K, both of them. That translates to 877-973-7425 if you want to call in. Okay, now what I wanted to talk about, I did not intend to talk about the economy. So the president has killed the top al-Qaeda leader in the Middle East. Well, I shouldn't say the president's killed. The president authorized the killing of. If it was Barack Obama, the left would be saying that, Barack Obama himself pulled the trigger. But since it's Donald Trump, they'd be saying, you can't say that. You can't say that. He didn't actually do it. They're right. He didn't actually do it. But it had to come from the president. And the president took care of it. Al-Qaeda's leader gone in the Middle East. Y'all, listen. We're going to get to a point where Republicans are convinced they're going to lose. We always do. Every election cycle, you go through really good weeks and you go through really bad weeks. But can we just enjoy the good week together here for a moment? The Democrats had a disaster in Iowa on Monday. The president had a really good State of the Union speech on Tuesday, topped off with Nancy Pelosi's theatrics that only helped with the Republicans. On Wednesday, the president of the United States was acquitted. On Thursday, he had a pep rally that caused a absolute media meltdown and killed al-Qaeda's leader. And on Friday, turns out the economy is still doing really well despite the trade war and the coronavirus. That's not bad. You got to give it to him. And I know there are a lot of people who don't. In fact, I pointed this out last night. And there are a lot of people who don't want to give the president any credit for any of this stuff. But I think you kind of have to, in the same way you had to with Barack Obama. Now, the truth of the matter is, if we want to be intellectually honest about it, the president doesn't deserve a ton of credit on the economy. I know everybody thinks this, but actually there isn't a ton that the president can do on the economy. There are things the president can do at the macroeconomic level fundamentally that change the size, scope, and direction of the economy over the long term. Absolutely can. So Bernie Sanders can come in, and Bernie Sanders can do executive orders, regulation, and maybe pass some laws that actually will fundamentally long-term disrupt and undermine the American economy. But in the short term and in the near term, it's really hard for presidents to screw up the economy. The economy has cycles. It ebbs and flows. It goes up. It goes down. We are in the longest period of economic expansion that this country has ever seen, and that's a good thing. But, so Dynamic Money sponsors this program. My buddy Chris Burns is my financial advisor, and he gives me this lecture all the time. When I call him, it's like, hey, you should buy this stock, Chris. I like this stock. And he says, no. You like the stock because of the news you heard this morning. Everyone else has already bought that stock and you want to get in on the craze. You should be investing for the long term. He tells me that all the time. I feel like I'm talking to my dad when I talk to Chris. Invest for the long term, he says. Don't play on the stock market. You're investing for the long term. Well, yeah, you are. He's right. You can go to Dynamic Money and get these lectures from Chris yourself if you actually want to save and make money. Turns out he's been saving me more money than I knew, and now I get to go on vacation. I should say this hour is sponsored by Dynamic Money. Go to dynamicmoney.com. In any event, hush, Siri. He's right, though. The ebbs and the flows of the economy come, and we will probably be at a economic slowdown at some point, and it'll probably come in the second term of the Trump administration. Okay. This is going to come back to haunt me, and I know it's going to come back to haunt me to say this. But on record now saying that the president in the short term really doesn't have a lot to do with the economy, whether it's Barack Obama or Donald Trump, there would be a bit of rich irony in the worst case scenario for Republicans that Bernie Sanders does get elected and the economy just tanks. Because as much as the Democrats would want to blame Donald Trump for it and say it was all his fault, we know what would happen. The public would blame Bernie Sanders. And that would wipe out the political left in this country. It would. They would blame Bernie Sanders and his failed policies. And by the way, his policies would, in fact, exacerbate any sort of economic meltdown. Now, if Donald Trump gets reelected president and the economy slows down, then he's going to get the blame for it. The Republicans get the blame for it. They'll have a very, very bad off-year election, but it wouldn't be nearly as disastrous as Bernie Sanders as president. Now, we got to get into the president's victory lap when we come back. Okay, now we can begin the show with where I wanted to begin the show. Seriously, I get up in the morning. I actually overslept this morning. It's kind of bad. I got up and hit the wrong button, and next thing I know, it is. I hear everybody else in the family up. I was like, uh-oh, usually I'm up before them. What has happened? Why are they up so early? And realized I overslept. So I was left scrambling, and then the economic news comes in, and it just everything goes upside down. So nonetheless, I wanted to spend time on the President's Victory Lap yesterday. It has sent the American media into an absolute meltdown over what the president said. And I just think that there are a couple of things we need to consider here. First of all, let us begin again. Let us review, shall we? A couple of points that I have already made. The Democratic meltdown in Iowa continues. In normal times, it would be humbling for a political party to have spent 4 years complaining about the Russians stealing the election and the need for election and voter integrity, only to then screw up your kickoff election for your presidential nominating season. The CNN, Jake Tapper, and the Associated Press, they're all noting that it's now impossible to actually get an accurate count of who actually won Iowa because there were so many screw-ups and cross-referencing screw-ups, and no one can actually figure out what happened. Well, the president didn't have to worry about all that. The president decided to have a big celebration yesterday, having killed al-Qaeda's leader, having had a great State of the Union, having been acquitted by the Senate, having the Democratic meltdown in Iowa continue. Here's the president.
We've all been through a lot together, and we probably deserve that hand for all of us because it's been a very unfair situation. I invited some of our very good friends, and we have limited room, but everybody wanted to come. We kept it down to a minimum, and believe it or not, this is a minimum. But a tremendous thing was done over the last number of months. But really, if you go back to it, over the last number of years, we had the witch hunt. It started from the day we came down the elevator, myself and our future First Lady, who's with us right now. Thank you, Melania. I've done things wrong in my life, I will admit. Not purposely, but I've done things wrong. But this is what the end result is. You can take that home, honey. Maybe we'll frame it. It's the only good headline I've ever had in the Washington Post.
He's holding up the Trump acquitted
But every
headline.
paper is the same. Does anybody have those papers? Does anybody have them? Because they're really like that, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's holding up the Washington Post. The headline was Trump acquitted, and laughing about that. The only nice headline the Washington Post has ever given him.
I've always said they're lousy politicians, but they do two things. They're vicious and mean. Vicious. These people are vicious. Adam Schiff is a vicious, horrible person. Nancy Pelosi is a horrible person. And she wanted to impeach a long time ago when she said, I pray for the president. I pray for the president. She doesn't pray. She may pray, but she prays for the opposite. But I doubt she prays at all. And these are vicious people. But they do two things. They stick together. Historically, I'm not talking now. They stick together like glue.
They do. One last one for the president's victory rally.
I mean, Nadler, I know him much of my life. He's fought me in New York for 25 years. I always beat him. And I had to beat him another time. And I'll probably have to beat him again. Because if they find that I happen to walk across the street and maybe go against a light or something, let's impeach him. So I'll probably have to do it again because these people have gone stone cold crazy. But I've beaten them all my life. And I'll beat them again if I have to.
Okay, here's the thing. The American media, reporters, pundits, anchors, all of them together, combined, are in meltdown over the President of the United States having a campaign rally at the White House yesterday declaring victory. They are in absolute apoplectic meltdown about it. They are livid at the president for saying what he said. The president also, there's one clip I can't play, and it's because the president said BS in the East Room of the White House, and he didn't say BS, he said the actual word. And I played this for you yesterday, and I need to play it for you again. The Democrats and the media collectively in absolute apoplectic meltdown over the acquittal.
The president's acquittal will be meaningless.
Well, he will not be acquitted. You cannot be acquitted if you don't have a trial.
This can't be a real acquittal.
This trial is no vindication.
In fact, it's a rush to a cover-up.
There will be a permanent asterisk next to the acquittal of President Trump.
People around the world are watching us going, this is what you want for the rest of the world? I mean, what a sad, sad moment.
I think it's a sad day for the so-called Republican Party. They're going to need to find their souls. Good luck to that.
And Russia, if you're listening, 2020 is open for investigations.
Elections may not have a fair result. The very charge goes to the fairness of our elections.
This is going to be an enormous stain on the United States Senate.
It's actually quite scary. I think we're at a very scary moment.
The Dershowitz argument, frankly, would unleash a monster.
We have a constitutional monarchy where Donald Trump is the supreme element of this state, like North Korea.
He's functionally a monarch.
He believes he's king.
We are not supposed to have a king. That was the main thing, other than, not wanting to have equal rights for women and black people and Native Americans.
They have handed Donald Trump the monarchy.
My fear is what broke is our democracy.
I think the wounds are going to be very deep. That will be it for America as we've known it.
It's official. Nothing means anything. Right is wrong, up is down, Missouri is Kansas.
He can just run through laws like he's got that Super Mario invisibility star. That's what he can do.
Today's acquittal does not equal an exoneration for the president, who will remain impeached forever.
You know what? For all the Democrats saying this wasn't a real acquittal, over to you, Chief Justice of the United States of America, John Roberts.
In this article of impeachment, 48 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 52 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged. 2/3 of the senators present not having pronounced him guilty, the Senate adjudges that the respondent, Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the first article of impeachment.
And then said the same thing for the second article of impeachment, and the vote margin was even wider, thanks to Mitt Romney siding with the Republicans on that one. Here's the thing. When Barack Obama held a campaign rally and told Hispanic voters that Republicans were their enemy, the media was not upset. When Barack Obama told his supporters they need to take guns to knife fights, the media was not upset. When Barack Obama told people they need to get in their neighbors' faces and challenge them, the media was not upset. When Barack Obama produced a website where you could go on and see whether or not your neighbor had voted and whether they were Democrat or Republican, the media was not upset. When Barack Obama set up an email address that you could forward your neighbor's emails to if you thought they were lying about Obamacare, the media was not upset. All those things happened. I'm not making up any of those things. Those things all actually happened. The media was not upset. Donald Trump saying BS in the East Room of the White House, you would have thought that we had a nuclear reactor meltdown, a 3 Mile Island situation in the United States. The media is apoplectic and panicked by it. Those voices you heard in that montage I played, they weren't just Democrats. They were reporters and news anchors as well. John Berman, who I very much like, who is a very nice guy, CNN anchor, is the one who said, Russia, if you're listening, investigations are open season for investigations, or whatever he said. The media has become part of the Democratic Party and can't admit it. There's a story by McKay Coppins in The Atlantic. And McKay Coppins is the he's a writer. He's profiled Mitt Romney in the past. He's written a very funny profile of Donald Trump. He's a very good writer. But essentially, the whole story is about the upcoming Donald Trump-backed disinformation campaign to win the election in November. and how so many facts are going to be distorted and how many people are going to lie, and on it goes. And I got to tell you, he's right. Let me read you this. But don't get mad at me for saying he's right. Just listen to me. Let me read you part of the conclusion. The political theorist Hannah Arendt once wrote that the most successful totalitarian leaders of the 20th century instilled in their followers a mixture of gullibility and cynicism. When they were lied to, they chose to believe it. When a lie was debunked, they claimed they'd known all along, and would then admire the leaders for their superior tactical cleverness. Over time, Arendt wrote, the onslaught of propaganda conditioned people to believe everything and nothing, think that everything was possible and that nothing was true. Leaving the Trump rally, I thought about Arendt, I forget how you pronounce her last name in any event, and the swaths of the country that are already gripped by the ethos she described. Should it prevail in 2020, the election's legacy will be clear. Not a choice between parties or candidates or policy platforms, but a referendum on reality itself. But here's the thing. What's going on with this, a buddy of mine replied to it, and let me read you part of his email. It's not out of turn for me to read part of his email. He says, this is absolution journalism. It really is them, not you. Don't waste a second examining your behavior. Don't waste a second examining your attitudes. Don't waste a second examining your perceptions. It's the other side that's bad. The other side that's wrong. The other side that tells all the lies. And for the Atlantic, for the Democrats, for them, it is genuinely, factually all about the Republicans are liars. Donald Trump is a liar. Everybody's a liar. They're all liars. They're all bad. They're all wrong. Shame on them. We tell the truth. We're honest. We're objective. Really what it is both sides do this. But what McKay Coppins and the Atlantic are doing, what the New York Times does, what CNN now does, what MSNBC has always done, is try to make you believe only the other side does it. Only the other side is bad. Only the other side is dirty. Only the other side exaggerates. Only the other side builds up hype. Only the other side says things that aren't true. When they do it too, they don't have clean hands. They make stuff up. All of the stuff that they're claiming, all of the stuff that they're doing is stuff that the Democrats do, all the stuff they say the Republicans do. The New York Times had a major story yesterday that showed essentially a very large part of what the Democratic government, what the Obama Democrats were doing from 2009 to 2017 when Barack Obama was president. There were a great many things the Obama administration did that obfuscated truth when it came to the war on terror and in terrorist protocols and things like that. And the Republicans in the Senate released this report, and the New York Times made it all about Republicans and a Republican screw up. When you actually read into the story, despite what the New York Times tweet was, the New York Times story is actually about the Obama administration screwing up a bunch of stuff. But whoever runs the New York Times social media account made it about the Republicans. You see this with The Hill. The Hill is a publication on Capitol Hill. Full disclosure, I refuse on this program to ever cite The Hill as a source. And the reason is because The Hill is notorious for distorting, lying, or obfuscating in its social media to try to get clicks into stories and willfully misrepresenting the truth. And I won't have a part of it. It is factual that this president says a lot of stuff that isn't true. It is factual that is true. The president says a lot of stuff that is not true. But it is factual that every Democratic candidate does the same. It is factual that every Democratic candidate makes stuff up. It is factual that the media is more likely to run an untrue story from the Democrats than from the Republicans. All of these things are factual. All of these things are true. But the media chooses to focus on the first, that the president says untrue things, at the expense of the latter, and gives absolution to themselves and everyone on the left, saying, oh, see, it's not us, it's them. And they may sleep well at night doing that, but the truth is that in doing it as well, they themselves cause the American public to distrust everything. They themselves cause the American public to not believe. And for McKay Coppins in The Atlantic to spend that much time saying this is how Donald Trump intends to win, by lying to people, politicians have lied since there were the first politicians. That's just a reality. Every politician has lied. To claim that Donald Trump is somehow worse than those who came before him is an outright factual distortion of truth. To claim that he's a monarch, to claim that he's a dictator is an outright distortion of the truth. And yet it allows them not to understand what's true and what's right, but it allows them to feel morally superior to the president's supporters. And that hubris can trip them up in November, just as it did with this Iowa election.
National connections, local focus.
Phone lines are open here. You can call in if you like. 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. And, you know, so I got a complaint the other day from a listener. And I don't mean this disparagingly. You're going to be offended by it. And I honestly don't care because I don't mean to offend you. It's just the truth. I got an email the other day from a listener. This happens every once in a while where they say, you say I can call, and I called in and your call screener wouldn't let me on the air. Well, yes. If your job as a caller is to make me look good. No, seriously, though. Seriously. I mean, your job as the caller, this is my show. If you want your own show, get your own microphone and figure out how to make it happen. Your job is not to call in and take over the show to make your point. This is my show. You want to ask me a question, call in and ask me a question. You actually have a profound point that you think would add to the conversation? Do it. We're okay with it. If you disagree with me, I'm happy to allow you to call in and disagree with me. Yesterday, I do an evening show as well. Yesterday, I had a bunch of people call in who wanted nothing more than to disagree with me, and I let them all call in and disagree with me. Perfectly fine. I can handle the criticism. But you got to at least be able to articulate a good point, make a good point, and not just call in to be an amen corner. The one thing, occasionally my call screener will let people call in to tell me how awesome I am because he thinks I need it. But by and large, come on. I got a limited amount of time here. I would love to take your phone calls, but don't be an idiot or drunk or just be an amen coin or ask a question. And by the way, when 5 people make the same point, don't be surprised when you can't get on because the prior 4 people said exactly what you said. Now, having said all that, I want to circle back to a bit of audio that I have played in the past. And I do this intentionally. I do this because we need to be reminded of it. What I just said, my entire monologue in the last segment, that you read this stuff out there that only Donald Trump lies, only Donald Trump peddles mythologies, only Donald Trump does this sort of stuff. Let's remember this.
Breaking news.
A bombshell.
Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump.
Today was a turning point.
A turning point.
We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
We have another bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office of the presidency.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
All the walls closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
Breaking news tonight, new bombshell.
This is the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The walls are closing in.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in.
Breaking overnight bombshell.
This is a very dramatic day, and I think it might be near a tipping point. Do you think this is a tipping point?
December 1st, 2017, you can mark it down. This is the day that everything changed.
The beginning of the end?
Beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the
We begin tonight with the bombshell.
Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Trump is in trouble.
The president will resign.
Another hour, another bombshell.
That goes on for another minute, by the way. We don't have another minute. That goes on for a full 2 minutes, 20 seconds through to last year
15.
Of all the turning points, tipping points, breaking points, and Donald Trump is ending.
10.
Democratic mythology lives on. I'm here. Welcome. It is Erick Erickson here. The Erick Erickson Show across the state of Georgia. Well, you know, I said a little while ago I could look out my window and see blue skies from the studio, and now, I don't know. Let me pull up the... Okay, yeah, well, I'm looking. There's snow. Believe it or not, if you're north of Atlanta, a lot of you woke up with snow. Those of us who are south of Atlanta hate your guts right now. None of it's stuck except up in the mountains. There's a little bit. There are flurries. I can actually see them on the radar now. Up 75 near in the Rome area and up towards Jasper. There have been some flurries, which is just incredible to me. My kids are desperate for snow. And honestly, if we're honest about it, my kids are at the age where, yes, they like the snow. They like to play in the snow. But the real issue is they just want to skip school. It's true. Okay, I made an executive decision. I want to play this audio in full. And let me reset the stage. I actually want to spend, believe it or not, I want to spend time on Georgia news because there's a lot. But I want to remake this point. McKay Coppins is a fantastic writer, reporter, works for The Atlantic, and he has a huge piece out that's getting a lot of buzz among Democrats in particular about how Donald Trump intends to run his campaign in November with a bunch of memes, lies, half-truths, distortions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that it is a fight for the truth in November. That's what the election is about. Now, McKay Coppins he's a reporter. But I get the sense from a lot of reporters that they were asleep for the 8 years of the Obama administration. And they now do this sort of, and it's a buddy of mine who said it, who's a very brilliant guy, who made this point, and it's one of those points where I think, dadgummit, I wish I had thought of it. How much in the American media these days, when it comes to Donald Trump, is absolution reporting, they call it. He calls it. The reporting of absolution. That the other side is contemptible and does all of these terrible things, and you are absolved. And what the reporter actually does is focuses so much on what Donald Trump does or what Republicans do or what conservative activists do that they totally and completely ignore the fact that their side does it too. I mean, the entire premise is of this piece is that Republicans engage in all sorts of mistruths, half-truths, distortions. They believe mythologies. They believe lies. They say things that aren't true. They build things up that aren't true. They overreact. They overhype. And that's exactly what Democrats do. And if you don't believe that's what Democrats do, please listen to this. I started to play it in the last hour. I play this thing. I actually keep this on the desktop of my laptop computer that I use for sound on the show because it rings so true. It hits so many points. It is so fair. It's a reminder that as much as the media likes to say Donald Trump has essentially built his house on lies, so have so much of the American media.
Breaking news.
A bombshell.
Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump.
Today was a turning point.
A turning point.
We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
We have another bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office of the presidency.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
All the walls closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
Breaking news tonight, new bombshell.
This is the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The walls are closing in.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in.
Breaking overnight bombshell.
This is a very dramatic day, and I think it might be near a tipping point. Do you think this is a tipping point?
December 1st, 2017, you can mark it down. This is the day that everything changed.
The beginning of the end?
Beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the...
We begin tonight with a bombshell. Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Trump is in trouble.
The president will resign.
Another hour, another bombshell.
This is a tipping point.
Trump's going down.
This president could be impeached.
Resignation. I don't think this president is going to serve out his term. Mr. Trump will not serve out his term. He will not serve out his term. No way,
know-how.
Breaking news.
Absolute bomb.
Donald Trump is not. He's done. And it's over.
It's over.
The wall's closing in.
The wall's closing in.
This is going to be the Achilles heel.
Breaking news tonight. I expect Trump to depart.
This week will be the watershed week.
Trump is in big trouble.
Trump's in a lot of trouble.
It's a sign of a terrified old man who feels the
Walls
closing in.
The walls
are increasingly
Closing in on him.
Tonight, the walls
For closing in.
today changed everything. This is the beginning of the end.
today the biggest
Tipping point for the Trump administration.
What a historic day. The bombshells.
He's underwater. He feels the walls closing in.
turning point.
We may be at a tipping point.
It's the beginning of
The end.
The beginning
of the end.
another bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell. Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
This is a bombshell.
It is.
It is a bombshell. Y'all, seriously. Hey, let's not deny it. If you're on the right, be honest. Donald Trump says a lot of things that aren't true. And a lot of you love the fact that it gets under the left skin. And that's okay. I wish we lived with politicians who said nothing but gospel truth. But we don't. We're all sinners. We all fall short. It's not a justification. It's just the reality. We're all sinners. Politicians say, this is why I'm a conservative, by the way. I'm a conservative because I'm a Christian. And I believe that we are all sinners, and so we should want as few sinners in charge of us as possible. So I'm a conservative. I want small government. I don't like the fact that Republicans are helping Democrats grow government. It's bad. If you're a sinner, you should want as few other sinners in charge of you as possible. But my goodness gracious, people, I've got to tell you that the Democratic purity here, that they're above this, that they don't do this. How many of them are still out there saying that Donald Trump is still benefiting from Barack Obama's economy as opposed to the tax cuts actually stimulated job growth in this country, which is a fact. But they can't say that. There's a level of dishonesty out there, and so much of the media as well, not just the Democrats, the media as well, has, well, yeah, I guess you could say I repeat myself, but they're allowing themselves to engage in a level of absolution that they're pure and people on the other side are not. And people on the right do this as well. People on the right tend to think that people on the left are just as bad as people on the left think people on the right are. And it's both sides. And that's one of my frustrations, honestly. I try, listen, I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian. I'm an evangelical. I'm a conservative. All the things you're not supposed to be. I'm white. I'm male. I'm heterosexual. All the things you're not supposed to be in America these days. I am. But I at least try to understand the other side, try to explain to you the other side. And I spend a lot of time on this program and in my writing and in my other program just telling you what you believe isn't true. Like, for example, the number of you right now listening to my voice who believe Nancy Pelosi broke the law by tearing up that State of the Union address the other night is astonishing to me, and it's simply not true. All you have to do is read the federal statute in question about destruction of documents. It is not true. While Nancy Pelosi is a public officer of the United States, the public officer provision in the law about destroying federal documents does not apply to members of Congress. It's absurd that so many people on the right want to believe that she broke the law. Or the number of people, here's the latest conspiracy theory, is that Nancy Pelosi waited for the president to turn his back to her before she reached out her hand to shake his hand. And that's why he didn't shake. It wasn't his fault. It was her fault. She set him up. That's not true. And yet there are people on the right who want to believe this stuff. And I spend half my time on this program telling you what so many of you believe isn't true. But I spend the other half of my time telling you what you do believe is true and what the other side is saying isn't true. It's staggering how bad the media gets it these days. And I just, listen, now, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I want to move on to other stuff. But I feel very, very, very strongly about this, that it is an obligation that all of us should have, particularly those of us who actually believe in God himself, that if God is truth, we should find truth. We should be committed to truth. And so many people no longer are in politics. And yet what they do is they decide that their side actually is telling the truth and it's the other side who are all the liars. No, actually, both sides lie. Let's just accept it and move on. And I do want to move on because I've never been able to completely get to this point on the president's victory lap. So he wants to get rid of Alexander Vindman. Alexander Vindman is the guy who testified against him from the National Security Council staff. He and his brother work in the White House. He clearly collaborated with the whistleblower. The president wants him gone. The media is outraged today. Y'all, I got to tell you, I have a real hard time getting worked up about the president of the United States wanting people loyal to him in the White House. Just ask yourself, if Barack Obama wanted to purge from the White House career staffers who had been ardent George W. Bush loyalists, the media would be attacking the career staffers for putting partisanship above serving the president, above serving the country. They would. And yet they're outraged that the president is doing this. I'm not outraged about it. Listen, if Bill Clinton wanted to purge the White House of anyone who testified from him, you and I both know the media would have his back on this. That the president is doing and the media is outraged by it is just another example of the media being in the tank for the Democrats. And then there's the disproportionate outrage. How much of the media was asleep for 8 years and says that the media is scandal-free or the Trump administration is scandal-free? I'm sorry, the Obama administration scandal-free. What about Fast and Furious? They totally ignored that. What about the Internal Revenue Service targeting conservative groups? And we know it was intentional, and it was designed. But Mr. Erickson, Barack Obama didn't tell him to do it. I'm sorry, you surround yourself with a bunch of ideological soulmates, and you tell them that the Republicans are the enemy. They don't have to get a specific order from you to target Tea Party groups. They know to target the Tea Party groups. And yet the media says there was no scandal there. There was nothing. Pure as the driven snow. This is why so many people don't believe the media. The president has had a remarkably good week. The Democratic meltdown in Iowa continues. I mean, they can't even figure out who actually won in Iowa now. Bernie Sanders is livid. And there's a problem. Over to you, Bernie Sanders.
Senator, a key part of your argument for the general election, your electability, is that you're going to boost turnout by bringing all these people into the process that haven't been voting. Iowa turnout doesn't look like it was higher than last time. Does that concern you?
It does. And I would have liked to have seen a higher turnout. And I think I could probably speak for every other candidate.
Higher turnout. Now, why is it? This is an underlying fundamental problem for Democrats. Do you know their turnout matched 2016? They've got more candidates now, and yet people weren't as excited. But you know what the real problem may actually be? Y'all, this isn't getting a lot of traction. We should be paying attention to this trend in Iowa. The reason turnout may be down in Iowa is not lack of enthusiasm, but lack of Democrats. Now, what do I mean by that? There's data. There is actual data that the 50 and older crowd, and what are the 50 and older crowd? The people most likely to vote in Iowa and everywhere else. If you're 50 and over, you're more likely to vote than people less than 50. And it turns out the reason that voter turnout may have been down in Iowa is not lack of enthusiasm, but lack of Democratic voters. Those people all became Trump voters. They're not Republican voters, they're Trump voters. Which suggests, and by the way, the polling in Iowa somewhat collaborates this, it suggests that Donald Trump is going to win Iowa. That's been a swing state. Iowa has been a swing state for 2 decades, and he may have taken it off the board. And that's why the turnout is down. And the Democrats are starting to get concerned about that as they pivot to New Hampshire. This has been a very good week for the president. The economic numbers were great today. Yesterday, an al-Qaeda leader is killed at American hands. The day before, the president is acquitted. The day before that, Nancy Pelosi tears up a great speech. The day before that, the Democratic meltdown in Iowa. And what's the media doing today? Saying, well, he's a liar. He was not nice in the East Room of the White House. He said a dirty word in the White House. Y'all, I've been in the White House, and I said a dirty word in the White House. I apologize, but I did. It just wasn't on TV, and I'm not the president. But still, I mean, good Lord. I wonder if these people in the media ever heard what Bill Clinton did in the Oval Office.
Honest news and conservative views.
Never separated from the truth.
All right, I really do want to move. I gotta say though, and this my buddy Nathan actually gives me this idea. Remember what, last week or so? It was last week. Democratic activists sent cakes to every senator's office, saying, and had written on it or something, do what you know is right or something like that, trying to pressure them to vote to convict the president of impeachment. I think that the president's team missed a brilliant opportunity to send cakes to every Democratic office in Congress today, with little cakes that have written on them, "Let them eat acquittal." Can you? I mean, that would be the ultimate troll by the Trump campaign. Is to do "let them eat acquittal" instead of "let them eat cake." Let them eat acquittal. That would be an absolutely brilliant troll by the president's team, and they really should. This is something Comfortably Smug should do. Hang on a second. I got to tweet that out. This is something Comfortably Smug should organize. Seriously, if you don't know who Comfortably Smug is on Twitter, it's like the greatest Twitter account ever. That absolute. I mean, they would be an absolute meltdown to do this. Yes, okay. Listen, I am the guy. Just so you understand, when I say this, I am the guy I actually got written about in the Wall Street Journal back in 2009. Olympia Snow, when she was in the Senate, the other squishy senator from Maine, agreed that she would allow the Obamacare legislation to go from committee to floor, and she knew it would pass, and she would support getting out of committee. And so I wrote a piece on the wall. I wrote a piece on. I was then the editor of Red State and wrote a piece and said, "What melts snow?" and encourage people to send bags of rock salt to Olympia Snow. And the Wall Street Journal wound up doing a story on this, that there was a little shop in Ohio that was selling out of rock salt and couldn't figure out why massive numbers of people were buying their rock salt. They wound up selling out all their rock salt, shipping it to Maine. And Wall Street Journal did this and realized it was me at Red State telling people to go buy rock salt. And then a couple of years later, Mitch McConnell was caving on something. And I encouraged people to send him balls, gym balls, that were ultimately donated to schools. So many were sent there. There were something like, I want to say 6,000 or 7,000 of these balls. And the giant gym balls that you used when we were in elementary school in gyms, so many of them were sent to Mitch McConnell. It clogged up the Capitol Hill mail room, and McConnell wound up donating them to elementary schools all throughout Kentucky. He wound up looking good at it. And, we did this a while back to Mike Dugan. Now, Mike Dugan, who is the Senate leader in Georgia, we wound up doing the same thing to him. We sent him a bunch of balls that he donated to gyms in Carrollton, but message received by Mike Dugan on the issue. Occasionally, you have to do stuff like that to get their attention. I'm not above doing that, which reminds me, you should subscribe to the. This is how I pulled it off. So I got this email list of people who are political activists, and all I did is I emailed them about sending balls to McConnell or Dugan or rock salt to Susan Collins, and said, "Hey, I'll make it really easy for you. You click this link on Amazon, you order this bag of rock salt. Here's the address to send it to. Do it. It'll make a point." And so many people did it. It became a news story. You should subscribe to this list because we need to do stuff like this in Georgia too, particularly whether it's to David Ralston or to others. Good Lord, we may need to send spines to members of the state house to throw out David Ralston. But it's really easy. All you do, you text the word Army, ARMY, text it. Text that word to 33777. The phone number is 33777. And all you do is you pull out your texting app. You go to your texting app. I'm doing it right now. You start a new message. The number you send it to is 33777. And then the word that you send is Army, ARMY. And when you do that, what happens is you're going to get a message back, and it says, says, okay, send me your email address. And so I'm going to send Erick, E-R-I-C-K, at the Resurgent, misspelled Resurgent, theresurgent.com. And when I do that, then boom, it's automatically going to subscribe me to the list. And so when I need you to send large gym balls to a member of the state legislature, or little plastic spines from Amazon, or bags of coal or rock salt, we can make it happen. You too can be an activist and do this. And it gets an impact. It does. And I'm really disappointed I'm not the one who thought about sending the sheet cakes to members of Congress with let them eat acquittal. I think that would be a brilliant idea, but we're not going to do that. When we come back, we got to switch to Georgia gear. There's a huge fight in the Georgia legislature over the budget that you need to know about. I'll tell you about it when we come back. All right, it is for things like this that we have our activist list. If you're just tuning in, wow, hang on a second, this just happened. I try to be flexible in what I'm doing. This just happened on CNN. This is Joe Walsh who lost. Listen to this.
So you're going to try to help elect the Democratic nominee.
Threat to this country right now. Any Democrat would be better than Trump in the White House. That's not an easy thing for me to say, but that tells you how serious this moment is.
Which Democrat do you think you would be most likely to support? Which Democrat would you be most excited to support?
I don't know that yet. In independents, to encourage them that your only option, John, is a Democrat. It's not Trump. It's not the cult. People have left the Republican Party. So many people have left the Republican Party. John, he's got his core cult-like following that cannot be reached. But there are a lot of Republicans and moderates on the margins. There are a lot of independents who are undecided right now.
Or Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren?
I would rather have John Berman, a socialist in the White House, than a dictator, than a king, than Donald Trump.
Wow. This man is broken. This is a broken individual. Wow. Sad to see, but not unexpected. Grifters gonna go. There's a story there I need to share real quick. There are a lot of people who get under my skin. Walsh kind of does, and it's for this reason. In 2015, I had I was the editor of Red State. You may remember this. I ended up actually killing the Ames straw poll by doing our event in Atlanta because every single presidential candidate for the Republican side came to Georgia to be on stage with me and talk. And Donald Trump was going to come, but he did the Megyn Kelly thing the night before, and I thought it would be a huge distraction to all the other candidates to have him there. I wound up uninviting him. And man, did I get death threats and all sorts of stuff for doing it. You know, one of the people who attacked me for uninviting Donald Trump from that event? Joe Walsh. And it got under my skin because Walsh at the time, Walsh had been a Tea Party congressman whose candidacy I had supported. And then he became a talk radio show host for Salem. Salem Radio was at the time the parent company of Red State. And they had just bought it. And here comes, he was not alone, multiple hosts wanting to hump the president's leg. Then a candidate went after me for doing what I thought was the right thing to do. Now, you can disagree with me. I don't care. I would have done it again. It was the right thing to do. He should have never said what he said about Megyn Kelly. But Walsh became kind of this, I'm going to pound the drum for Donald Trump and hoo-ha sort of stuff. And then he didn't, I don't know. Here's the thing. I know a number of people who ultimately wound up not supporting Donald Trump, who lost their jobs in radio. They lost their jobs in radio and they blamed their listeners for losing their job in radio. I not only did not support Donald Trump in 2016, but I actually coined I shouldn't say I coined the term. It was actually my friend Aaron coined the term never Trump. And I wrote a huge piece in February of 2016 and said, I will never vote for this man. I don't care if he's the nominee and I don't care whether he's going to win or not. I'm not going to vote for him in 2016. Absolutely not. I do not like him. I think character counts. Now, the Democrats lost their minds between 2017 and 2020, and I'm going to vote for Donald Trump in 2020. I told the man myself. He has called me more than once at home, and I have told him I am supporting him. I may be critical of him, but I'll support him. I was critical of George W. Bush as well, and I've supported him. But I didn't in 2016. And there are a number of other people I know who didn't support him, and they were on talk radio, and their audiences went away, and they blamed their audiences, and they blamed Trump, and some of them are very, very, very bitter about the president. Do you know what? My ratings went up. I don't like to talk about ratings, but I have a very in the evenings, I do another radio show, and it is very well regarded and highly listened to. And it is only in Atlanta. And although it is only in Atlanta, it has a massive audience. We don't need to go into the metrics, but I'll tell you, you could not do evening drive time on the largest talk station in the country if your ratings were bad. Mine went up. Now, you know why mine went up, even though a lot of my audience was mad as hell at me? I mean, y'all, we had people show up at our house to threaten us. We wound up moving our kids to a different school because of the harassment they were getting at school, at a Christian private school, no less. My wife was harassed in church. My children were yelled at and chased in a grocery store over me. It was difficult, and I stuck to my guns. And my audience went up. Even people were mad at me, and the audience went up. And do you know why? I never blamed my audience. I got that they wanted to beat Hillary Clinton. I hated Hillary Clinton too. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But I was honest with the audience. Here's why I'm not doing it. And yet when the president did something that I thought was good, I would say, you know what? This is good. He should do more of this. I like this. And when I thought he did something bad, I would say, this is bad. I don't like this. I had to eat crow in November of 2016 because I really didn't think he was going to win. He wound up winning, obviously. And I didn't think he would. I wouldn't have supported him even if I thought he was going to win. I was very clear about that. But I was also willing to give him credit where credit was due. And I wasn't going to blame my audience for wanting to beat Hillary Clinton. I wanted to beat her too. I just thought he was a terribly flawed person, and we were selling out values that I thought really mattered. And clearly, 100-some-odd million people disagreed with me. But he wound up winning, and he wound up being a way better president than I thought it. And I've given him way more credit than I've criticized. And I still get people who call me, "You're never a Trumper. I can't believe you're criticizing the president." It's like, I'm voting for the guy. He calls me at home. He doesn't call you at home. But there were other people in radio, and Walsh being one of them, who had a history of saying bad things. Walsh has more than once used the N-word. And there were people that their audience cratered as they turned on the president. And they couldn't be dispassionate about it. And they couldn't say, here's why I think this is bad. You guys know where my heart is, and this is why I think you should do it. No, they had to. Here's the thing. When you go red, when you start throwing red meat, and all you know how to do is throw red meat, you can't analyze the situation. You can't be dispassionate. You can't pull yourself out and say, here's what the data says. When all you can do is throw red meat, and you're used to throwing red meat in one direction, and the direction turns, and all you can do is throw red meat in the other direction. You can't just say, hey, look, the direction of the country has changed. I'm out of line with the country. Here's why I think I'm right, even though everybody thinks I'm wrong, and have a relationship with your audience. You know, Rush Limbaugh's coming back on air today. Wherever you are, I don't care. Rush Limbaugh comes back on the radio today at noon. He'll be back. And here's the thing. Rush has been a friend and a mentor, and one of the many pieces of advice Rush Limbaugh told me over the years, gave me over the years, is have a relationship with your audience so that you have room to disagree with them. And it's brilliant advice. I mean, you think I'm just a guy on the radio, but here's the thing about radio. When you're on radio is the most personal media out there. Because you can't see me. If you're watching a live stream, you can see me on the video live stream on Facebook or wherever. But by and large, people who are listening on radio, they're listening to my voice. And it's my voice they recognize. Do you know, when I go to restaurants, I sit and I face the crowd. Do you know why? It's the craziest damn thing. If I'm in a restaurant and my back is to everyone immediately knows it's me. But if I sit and I'm facing the crowd and I'm talking, people can hear my voice. They're like, that guy sounds familiar, but they can't place it when they see my face. When they don't see my face, they know immediately. That's how personal radio is. You can hear the tone of voice. You know, my job is not to save the world. My job is not to advance conservatism. My job is not to advance the Republican Party. My job is not to advance and glorify God. I mean, my job is to glorify God. I am a Christian. That's job number one there, the doctrine of vocation. But still, you get my point. My number one job is to keep you company. It's to inform you. It's to educate you. It's to bring you the news. It's to tell you what's true. It's to tell you what's false. But it's to entertain you. It's to keep you company. You're in your car. You're in your office. You're riding down the highway. You're in your classroom. You're somewhere, and you just need a voice to tell you that, you know, I'm not crazy. Somebody on the radio agrees with me. Somebody who's going to make me laugh. Somebody who's going to tell you the news. Someone who's going to make you. And these people, they didn't understand it. They blew up Donald Trump, and they couldn't be funny, and they couldn't be humorous, and they started to hate their audience. And they blame their audience. Never blame the audience. If you're in the minority, it's you. It's not them. And at least I got a wife and 2 kids who keep me humble. If nothing else, I am humble. I am overly white and fat. That keeps me humble. And some of these people they couldn't get it. And now they've lost their damn mind. Joe Walsh out there, I would rather have a socialist in the White House than a dictator. Do you know what a dictator does not do? A dictator does not stand for an election in which he cannot win or may not win. Donald Trump may not win in November. Is he still a dictator? If Donald Trump loses in November, is he still a dictator? If he's not, then definitionally he never was. And these people don't know. He has broken them. Donald Trump has broken these people, broken them. All you had to do was have an ounce of humility and be willing to be agreeable in disagreement. And you couldn't do that. And you lost your audience. You lost your job. You ran for president in a chaotic campaign of grifting. Now you're out of your campaign. You're suspending your campaign, and it's all Donald Trump's fault. It's not your fault. There's no willingness to say, this is the same damn problem I have with the left. They're reading the story by McKay Coppins. This is a very good story, by the way. And this whole story is on how Donald Trump is going to use lies and distortions and memes to get reelected. And there's an entire portion in there on how Democrats do it, too. And all the Democrats are smugly circulating the story around, saying, oh, he's right. Donald Trump's a liar. We own the truth. The truth is progressive. No, it's not, you hacks. And there's not an ounce of humility or self-assessment or self-criticism or self-analysis to realize you're as bad as him. Oh, man, I hate politics these days. I love you guys. That's why I do this. I love you people. I love being here. I love being a guy on the radio who can actually tell you, you're not crazy. You're not alone. Jesus Christ is real. I believe in him. I got to work better on making sure my politics conform to my faith and my faith to politics. I got to work on this. The left is in a culture war with us. They are out to get us. They want to shut you up. They want to make you feel like you're alone. By the way, Donald Trump is doing well today. He's had a great week. Next week, he's going to get on Twitter. He's going to screw it all up. I do want you to know that. But my goodness, some of these people, they're incapable of doing it. How do you get, there are a lot of terrible radio shows. I realize I've lost it. I should really go to commercial break right now before I get myself in trouble. There are a lot of bad people on radio, though. And they want to throw you red meat and they want to tell you what you want to hear. They don't know what they believe. They just want to throw you the red meat of what they think you believe. And then when the winds turn, they can't handle it. Have at least some philosophical underpinnings, people. Have some core beliefs. Get some principle. Grow a spine. Find Jesus. Instead of just sticking your finger in the wind, and then when the winds shift dramatically against you, your boat gets tipped over because you can't respond. It's pathetic to see people like that. It is. You should pray for these people. They need Jesus. It is unbelievable to see people just crater like that, saying I would rather have a socialist than a dictator when he's not a dictator. All right, I'm Gary. Rescue me from myself. Welcome to the program, Gary.
Oh, thank you. I want to thank you for being such a strong fighter to stand up for people and for standing up for the president. And I know you're a fighter. I used to read your articles in the Telegraph. I'm a Telegraph junkie myself there. And always had the greatest respect for you. You and I should have already met. Like you, I've been a fighter. I was raised in Dodge County. I'm self-employed. I had red hair, so I was picked on as a little kid so bad it was unmerciful.
You were in Dodge County and the mob didn't get you.
Anything in life, bullies are cowards. You never get picked on by some of your sides. When I was a little first grader, I get picked on by ninth graders. But it taught me to stand up for what was right, and my dad was the same way. And I know some crooked. Down through my life, my dad once gave me a list when I was 9 years old and said, son, here's the list of the results from tomorrow's election. Now, I always loved politics. It was like one of my sports. So I walked off and I stopped and I thought, tomorrow's election? So I tried to walk back and said, Dad, how could this be? He said, well, these are, says, hi, Dad, you'll see it. Well, on Wednesday, when the papers came out after election, they were dead right. I said, how did this work? He said, the ballots are already counted. Now, they're going to have an election, yes, and they always have a person that's head of the elections that's like a 92-year-old lady, and they always count them upstairs in the judges' chambers. So it takes an hour to get her, bless her heart, to get her upstairs. In the meantime, they swap that sheriff's car with the one that's got the actual ballots that's done counting in it and tote them inside. I'm telling you, it's incredible.
Now, all right, Gary, I got to stop you there. I got to stop you because there are people thinking that you've lost your mind. I want to vouch for Gary. I was a lawyer for a number of years and represented more than one person from Dodge County, Georgia. And the stuff Gary is saying, I actually represented a guy one time who got thrown in jail because he repossessed the car of the daughter of one of the prominent public officials in Dodge County. Gary, thank you very much for that phone call. Dodge County politics is the craziest thing. I got to let you go there because I got a commercial break, but thank you very much for that call. Y'all, I could tell you stories all day long about listen, I love you people in Eastman. I genuinely do. I come down there and eat with my wife. Likes to ride her motorcycle down to Eastman to eat at the Sidetrack Cafe. It is a wonderful, wonderful place. They changed the name of it. Somebody bought it. Great restaurant down there. I love Eastman. I love Dodge County. I've spent a lot of time there, but man, do I have some stories. Y'all think Gary is making it up? No, he is not making that up. Now, I promise we got to get into Georgia stuff.
News and in-depth analysis.
Look, I see your tweets and I see your emails, and y'all think Gary was making it up. I love that Sidetrack. So those of you in the rest of the state, one of the weekend, M&T, it is a butcher shop, and it is the most incredible butcher shop you will ever find, and you can't imagine that something like that is in Hawkinsville. In fact, tomorrow, and then we can drive over to Butler to Barrow Automotive. Now, if you've never heard of Barrow Automotive, never been there, y'all, it is the most incredible thing you will ever see. You go to this, and so we're going to go to M&T. And in South Georgia, in Eastman, right along the railroad tracks, and what is it, out of state, that you think I should know about, shoot me an email, eric@theresurgent.com. Remember, it's ERICK, because my wife is always looking for places to ride her motorcycle and take her Harley owners group, band of motorcycle brothers up there, and they recommended some restaurant near Rome out in the middle of nowhere, and I think my wife loves to ride her motorcycle to Eastman, and then we'll go to M&T, and we'll Gopher. I don't know about Gopher. Those of you who 75, you don't make it to Adel. Adel Outfitters is probably one of my favorite places. What is it now? It's Broken Arrow. I've got a gun from there. They have great clothing selection, but Barrow Automotive and Butler. When we come back, there's a huge fight in the Georgia legislature over the budget, and the Speaker of the House is trying who is insult. Hang on a second. It is the Erick Erickson Show. 7973-7425. Get a better internet connection in my head. And you need to understand it. There is a civil Leffler's praises, and it means Leffler's going to get an appointment. Possibly for Collins, whose background is as I don't know. It's why should he lose? Because I mean, she wants to be in this for the long haul. The lay of the land in Georgia. They're populist. Probably the great. There are people that believe as Boeing is a Fortune 500 company that is not in charge. They fell behind on technology, really compete, and more we see that with Ford pick them off and never actually innovate. Opposed to monopoly and has had to innovate deeply. Now my kid plays Halo and on sweetheart deals with the government and Daker of the Georgia House is increasingly the protect faith-based adoption, but these are all things I've been building up in most every state in the South now. Muslim, Catholic, and Protestant kids within family. If you as a Christian show up at the Sharia law, I can hear the. But you shouldn't. You can't deny them their free exercise. Every one Muslim adopt that. I mean, that's crazy. Let's deal with the Christian ones. Let's deal with and they believe that you can't just serve the body. You must also Holy Spirit in a dramatic way that child is never going to know Jesus. A Christian believes Jesus is the only path to salvation. He is your Lord and fundamentally theological being advanced by the alphabet game. And many increasingly, because these states are telling them that comes in, if a pantheist comes in, if an gods of the child burning in hellfire, and a lot of states they have a right to exist. They have a right to this now, by the way, as Catholic and Protestant are actually less adoption agents. Costs of adopting goes in Louisiana, are allowed to exist, and are of the same sex than it is a loving gay couple adopt a child and have. I think somehow I'm a bad Christian by saying that, but I'm sorry. I would rather them be placed in it. So I would hate to see for writing a Bible study. Well, the Speaker of the House then have them exist and kids to go to schools of their choice. The successful in getting kids from bad neighborhoods, horror of horrors, they're professing Christian. They grow up to be Christian. Now, I don't mean to make this about Cagle is more of a conservative populist. If you saw his to be, and he's a great governor, moderate or not, but protect people of faith in the state. That Republicans are so united around Ryan Kemp, the more likely they are to turn on the Speaker. The adoption reform issue and faith-based Atlanta's going to hate us for doing this. He may not have wanted to do it, but this could kill us at the backbeat legislation either. Well, Ralston doesn't let them up. He's a corporatist. He keep his promises, and the more the governors provide the Republicans to stay in power. Rebuke to the governor, and how I was told behind on the about me and about you, and so he is out to scuttle it as a corporate Republican would do, and cut taxes because he knows budgetary affected. But they're having to go. The governor has a lot of allies now in the House of Representatives, and the question you're going to have to kept his promises to you being drawn. Couldn't care less about. to get rid of the time change, which evenings I've noticed it's pitch black outside. Big America Day. It is very interesting, and I had no planes fly. Everyone under that creates pressure, yet a plane, and so you got underneath the wing is pushing. No one can explain. Welcome. It is Erick Erickson here, the Erick Erickson Show. So my daughter just texted. She is at the middle of August, and we're still at the struggle of, I can't actually stop and come do something because there's a mistake. It really was a terrible mistake. who kept text messaging me while I was on radio, who was listening to the show. Now, my mom does this sometimes, and I love my mom, off text messaging on the show, because I know it continuing to talk, and then my mind wanders off, and you can tell, and it drives Charlie insane. When they say, hey, would somebody text so-and-so? Oh, my Lord, I nearly lost a friend over that. I had to call and apologize, who knew the two of us listened to my show, and they all flooded him with text. No. I took care of it myself. Just people who want to, I am way too accessible to you people. That's the problem. Lovingly, family members access to me. They have my cell phone number. I got a buddy of mine who is, he has 2 cell phones. And that is the number that everybody has generally. And at night, he doesn't answer that. 2 iPhones. One is white and one is black, and that's what he does. His white iPhone is Hollywood, not politics. And it was so cool. So he's got a business card, and there's no is a quality. Premium. Thinking I need to start doing that. But the phone number that's on the card, that phone, except a couple of times a day, he uses the other one. And I'm not actually gonna do anything like that right now. I'm going to move on to other coronavirus situation. But I was on the Acela. Have you ever heard people train? And hang on a second, I got to do this properly for those of you on watching the live stream. The high speed people in policy positions love trains. They want to build a high speed railway between Atlanta and Charlotte. And it's actually not a bad idea when you look at the cost of this train. So Amtrak wants to build a train from existing Norfolk Southern track, or CSX track. Third is they essentially use interstate right-of-way and combined. The one that they want to do is the priced option. There wouldn't be much modified in the existing right-of-way. And this, that one just in Georgia to Nashville in 4.5, 5 hours. From Atlanta, I can get from Atlanta to Nashville in about 4 hours. Right now, who's $5, you can take a bus, and it has all the stops, the bus services. So I was on the Acela from Elite use. They used to use the shuttle between New York and up there one day with Tom Friedman of the new, didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, service industry people at a hotel. And he was sitting diagonal, who was managing the car that just savaged the guy's a love affair with China, married into wealth and privilege, who hasn't all that smart. And Tom Friedman, of course, has this Tom Friedman fixation that the left shares with China. They want a dictator. They want a social. They want that. They just don't want it to. They can build the whole rail in 45 days. Never mind. Pay no attention. They are literally conducting door-to-door search them up and throwing them in. They're not calling them concentration camps, but that's essentially. And people are hiding relatives. Your kids would be familiar with Tencent because they make video games. Data that shows tens of thousands of people have died from some communists are liars. And the fact that you have a Chinese 1,000 people, 600 some odd people, 658 people have died now from the coronavirus. And notice that the American media that has had this American media may flirt with China and its innovation and its technology, and it is an evil regime. It is a regime that does not respect. And in a totalitarian despot, and a doctor started warning them. This doctor, by the way, rounding up the people, going house by house in Wuhan to throw people in concentration camps who may be sick, their death probably, because they're trying to eradicate the virus. And the New York Times out of Wuhan is some of the best in the world. There are actually some good stories in the New York Times, and their coverage has large. And the people in China are deeply disturbed by what's happening. And who is a woman whose name I can't remember now. I was trying to find. They're going to go to these concentration camps that they're not causing concentration. Have invested in saying is better than us. You have all of these situations that China is going to reign supreme, that China is going to be surpassing a capitalist regime. The age of China. This is going to be the sin from the heart of China that this country cannot continue. Of our intellectual elite, at the end of the day, they hate the freedoms of this country, and they know who can snap their finger and build a system. The breakdown in our government, the squabbling in Congress, the difficulty of getting things fixed classes and through our media and through our elite, and that is a feature, not a bug. That something sustained in court, that is a freedom, that is a feature. It is not a bug, and we should have a regime in China that can round up its people and throw them in a concentration camp.
Honest news and conservative views.
So I got to leave last year to do this event, and it actually is an honor, and it's a big deal to and dare them to have a civil conversation about. Find it on our own side of the Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO 2 weeks ago. Then from conservative stations, and I'm not from Fox and from CNN. He said go to CNN outreach with the other side and break bread with. I do actually think it's a bigger problem on. And when you think about it, I live Obama stickers. And yet conservative, and so